All right, welcome back. Today, I'm going to bring you along with me to practice my salchow. So I think this is going to be like a little new series kind of thing that I do where I just practice and kind of go over things as I go over them. Right now, my main skating objective is the salchow. I have a single salchow, obviously. The double sal. I have a spotty relationship with the double sals. I had a pretty consistent one for like a week or maybe 2 weeks tops. And it was short-lived, but it was very consistent. Like I could do them back to back and it was pretty good. And it felt just like an axle. And at some point, I don't know what happened, I just completely lost it. Like it just is not there. Even my single salchow just does not feel the same as it used to. So recently, I have been putting 110% energy into practicing single salchows, which is a little bit boring and a little bit yeah, I've been putting so much effort into single salchows, and I really just want the double back, and I want to start working on my bigger jumps. But I'm really trying to bring myself back to the basics, really get myself back in the habit of doing a lot of drills, a lot of perfecting the little things, and then trying to put it back together. Because right now I can just feel that my single salchow is just, it's not there. It looks good, but it's not doubleable. And it looks doubleable, but it does not feel doubleable, and every time I try to do it, it does not work. So I'm gonna work on my salchow today, and I'm gonna tell you kind of the things that I'm working on, go over why I'm working on them. First, let's start with what's wrong. What's missing in my salchow right now is that there's no grip. So I have the edge coming back around, and one of two things happens. I either try really hard to get my toe stop into the ground, which is really important, especially in inlines. I try really hard to get my toe stop in the ground, and either I get it and I do this weird like pivot and then jump kind of thing, or I just completely miss my toe stop and it comes around and then slips out from under me as I'm trying to lift up into the air. I've not been able to nail down what exactly is causing that. I don't know if it's just that I need to think about the toe stop, and I don't know. Whenever I think about the toe stop, one problem happens, and whenever I think about the edge and bending my knees, the other problem happens. So I don't know if it's just a matter of getting a happy medium in there somewhere, or if there's some technical correction that I need to make, but I'm gonna experiment around a little bit, and I'm gonna see what works and what doesn't. I'm gonna do a salchow at the beginning of this, and I'm gonna do one at the end of this. And I'm gonna hope that I can see some progress happen somewhere in there. Fingers crossed, dear God, please. Because it feels like I've been practicing this jump over and over and over again, and it's just like the exact same. So I'm gonna work really hard, and I'm really gonna try to get this salchow solid. At one point my double sal felt like I was just doing an axle, and that's how you hear a lot of coaches describe it, is like you pivot forward and then you just do an axle. And it felt like that. It didn't feel exactly like, a 3-turn axle, but it felt very axle-y. It felt completely in control, and really what I felt was that I had this swing through completely on lock. Like I could make it go higher, I could make it go further out, I could try to get more rotation. I just knew how to control the takeoff. And somewhere in the mix, that has just completely disappeared. I don't get any kind of good swing through into the jump. It just kind of either pops up off the ground or it just like spins and I get zero height. So I'm gonna try one at the beginning of this, and we're gonna try one at the end. And I'm gonna hope that the one at the end is a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, or covers a little bit more distance. And hopefully it just feels better, because right now the salchow just feels bad. So enough talking, let's go do one. All right, so this is what we're working with right now. I'm gonna do, I think, the 3-turn entrance. And it's okay, it felt fine, but it didn't feel like I could have made it any bigger. It just kind of felt like it happened, and so I don't really know where to go from there. Let's try another one, just see what I need to really work on. Okay, the takeoff on that one felt a little bit better. I felt more of a swing around, but when I landed, I was like super far outside of the circle, or turned to the outside of the circle. So like my right arm came in front, my left arm came behind, and I turned out. That's a big problem I have on a lot of my landings, but something about that one, I like landed in that position, so it was not very tight in the air. Okay, well both of those were kind of out of frame, which is great. What I think I want to work on, and what I really hope, please, I really hope it helps, is this kind of like backwards lean that you get into a lot of your jumps, pretty much every jump. And it's kind of more of a vaulting technique versus a jumping technique. So with like a jumping technique, you really focus on bending your knee and jumping straight up and using your edge for speed and everything like that. With a vaulting technique, you try more to have your hips kind of out behind you. It turns into in front of you by the time you pivot around. And you keep a straighter leg and use that straight leg, kind of like a pole vault, like you're running up a pole vault. So I'm hoping that getting my hips out in front of me a little bit helps me kick into it a bit better. One thing I noticed on a lot of my single salchows is that, especially the really pivoty one where I kind of am turning and then jumping, is that whenever I leave the ground, I'm already tilted really far forward. So I'm kind of leaving like here. And so I'm basically doing the exact opposite of what I'm supposed to be doing, which is leaving a bit more here. It's kind of hard to simulate because you don't want your hips pushed like super forward, but you want your toe stop out in front of you. So I'm gonna try to work on that and see if I can get myself to keep those hips back behind me and then pivot before I start to reach over. And hopefully that helps. I will say doing edge jumps on like really bumpy, rough concrete like this actually makes it so much easier because you really have like the same kind of grip that you get with an ice blade. And so my salchows have always been like pretty decent outside, and then inside they are just a complete mess and my foot's just like slipping out from under me no matter what. So I might do pretty good on my salchow today, hopefully. I really want to land it inside though, so that'd be really great. Hopefully if I can nail this back down, I can kind of bring that feeling back into the rink and land it on a smooth floor, but that feeling has just gone everywhere now. Like no matter where I'm skating, I cannot feel the right technique for a salchow. So let's go try to keep my hips behind me a little bit more, see how that looks, if that's any different. Okay, I mean, I did feel like my hips were behind me a little bit more, and I did feel a bit more of a kind of rotation whenever I was taking off, but I did not feel the kick through. I didn't feel my leg come up and kind of guide where the jump is going. So, you know, that's kind of the thing that's been happening, is that I might make improvement on one technique point, but then something else gets thrown off a little bit, and I cannot get them all to work at the same time. I'm gonna try to do more of a two-footed takeoff technique. Is my wheel coming loose? No, it's fine. These wheels kind of come loose. If I'm skating on a bumpy surface, they start to like wiggle their way back out of my frame, and sometimes they'll fall off, which is not fun. So I keep having to like check my wheels and be like, are they falling off? Is that wheel falling off? No, I think it's fine. We'll see. Okay, I'm gonna try to do more like a two-footed technique kind of takeoff. So this helped me learn my two-footed salchow. And a lot of people ask, they're like, I can't figure out the two-footed salchow. I could not either for the life of me for a long time. Just doing like, I don't know what you call this necessarily, a pump, or it's kind of like a swizzle, but instead of swizzling with both of your edges, kind of making like a, you know, lemon shape, that's what people call it, or a bubble. You're on an inside edge and your outside edge. So it's the same technique for salchow and toe loop. You kind of get both of those edges when you're doing this. And so I treat it a bit more like a loop jump, where like you're setting up for a loop, you bring yourself into that position and then you bend into it. So I'm trying to think about it a little bit more like that, to where like I can just bend into that edge and start the jump and not have to rely on the swing through. And at one point, that's actually how I first landed my double sal, was to go there, check, and then jump. But somehow that is like not working that well for me anymore. So I'm gonna try to get that back a little bit. First, I'm just gonna do it from these like pump swizzle things. I'm sure there's a name for this. There has to be. Just pump, pump, pump. Oh God, see? Like that just did not work at all. This wheel is coming off. I hate this. Sometimes I just tighten it back down with my hand and call it a day. Let's try again. That's really what I want. I want it to make more of a circular motion. That felt better. But again, it's like a tiny single sal. It's not doubleable by any stretch of the imagination right now. Also, there's like these cracks in the floor that like run kind of perpendicular right here. And so if I'm like taking a super long time to go into a jump, I'm trying not to hit a pothole. Okay, let's try that technique again. Free turn. Oh, I will say it felt more powerful. I don't know if that's just because I'm outside and it feels a little grippier, or if that technique is actually helping me. I feel like I can get my left hip back behind me pretty good, but my right hip does not follow. So that is one thing I wanted to try too, is to do that 2-foot technique, but try to push both my feet back underneath me instead of just pushing that one. I don't know. We'll have to see. I've also started kind of experimenting with the other sal-cal techniques. There's like the 2-footed, quote unquote. I don't really call it that because I don't do it the 2-footed way, but it looks like I do whenever I bring my foot forward. I will like sometimes barely place down my first wheel, but I usually don't touch the ground that much. And I'm not like standing on it, so it's not like a 2-footed sal-cal like that. But I've also been trying kind of different things with the free leg. I'm not good at the turned in one, mostly because my hips just are not super flexible that way. Like turning my hips in is not super easy for me. But I have tried more what I heard a coach, Chris Conti from I Coach Skating, he calls the magic circle, which is more of it's kind of like a 2-foot spin almost, where you're pushing both of your inside edges together. So instead of having an inside and an outside, you have 2 insides, more like that. Is this falling? Oh my God, this is. It's literally coming off. Okay, hold on. Okay, the wheels are secured once again. I'm gonna go try a 2-foot sal-cal with the foot turned out, and then I'll try a magic circle sal-cal with the foot turned in a little bit more. I'm gonna try to do them like back to back if I can, and just see how they feel. So 2-footed. That one felt good. Now let's do magic circle. That didn't really work as well as I wanted it to, or it didn't really do it right. Let's try one more where I really focus on turning the foot in. Okay, I mean, it felt better. It didn't feel super big. Like I just can't feel that swing through. I just want to feel like I'm following my right foot up into the air, which like on a waltz jump I can feel perfectly fine. Like that. It's not even like a huge waltz jump or anything, but I felt like I went with my free leg instead of staying over top of my left leg, which is not really what I want necessarily. Ooh, okay. That one did feel better actually. I thought about letting my upper body kind of follow my right foot into the air. I don't really know if that's correct necessarily. I'm gonna watch it back and see what that looked like, because sometimes you just gotta watch. Okay, so that one did kind of look better, but I did also still notice that when I'm leaving the ground, I'm not tilted back at all. I'm actually stepping over. And that, you know, if you can get away with stepping over kind of and leaning forward on the takeoff, then that creates more distance. But you have to, it adds in a variable that's kind of difficult to control. And so it also doesn't really get you the maximum like snap and height. So I kind of want to try to avoid that. It's really hard not to want to go with a technique that I know is not really correct whenever it's working. And I'm like, well, why don't I just do it? But then it sucks because like I want the double sal-cal back right now. But I know that I probably shouldn't do it that way and that it probably would hinder me in the long run. So I'm gonna try to be disciplined and not just do what's easy. One thing I also want to try to emphasize today is I realized that I'm pretty good at snapping up through my right hip just from trying to be in my air position so much, but I'm not really good at that. Like I can't feel that I'm like squeezing my glutes whenever I snap up through my left hip. And so I think that like hip snap is something that's kind of throwing it off right now, because that snap from your hips actually creates so much more height than you think it does. It's really not so much about bending your knees and jumping. And in fact, like if you bend your knees too much, the takeoff can happen and you're not pushing up to a straight leg, and so you're not getting your hips underneath you. And that can just really hinder your height. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but you want to bend your knees a little bit less sometimes, because you might be going into it like this, but by the time that the takeoff happens, you're only pushing up to like here. So however much you can push up in the amount of time that the takeoff takes is really how much you want to bend your knee, if that makes sense. So let's try less bent, more snap, more hip snap. Yeah, didn't feel bad. I still kind of bent my knee a lot going into it. Gonna try to, let's just try it again. That didn't feel good. I need to like commit to my landings. I keep like doing this little whatever thing. I need to like try to actually make it look good if I want it to look good. That one didn't feel great. It felt like it just got a little bit far away from me. I don't know. One thing that is kind of important that I've noticed is that there's this kind of like bobbing motion when you bring your leg forward. So I think I need to try to straighten my leg at that point and then not really bend it a whole ton after that. What I mean too is like when you bring your leg forward from the Salchow, you push up a little bit and you're really making space for that leg to come through. Because if I'm bent here and I try to bring my leg forward, I have to swing it around. And the swinging around, like, that is kind of part of the technique, but you don't want to emphasize just swinging around without building height. So trying to work on keeping it a little bit less swingy, even though mine is usually not very swingy, to be honest. I kind of need to work on that maybe a little bit more actually. But I have noticed when I come out of the 3-turn or the mohawk or whatever it is, if I have my free hip really open, I tend to lose control of it a little bit more, and I just don't get like a good push through my edge. And if I leave my foot a little bit more square and bring it forward without really turning it much, I usually get a better hook on the takeoff. So that's something I've been doing. I don't really know how correct that is. I don't think there's one correct way to do the free leg on a Salchow. I think it really is kind of personal preference. Let's try again. See, the problem is that they all feel pretty good right now. I'm like tempted to just go for a double, which I kind of do need to just start practicing the doubles more, because I do a lot of singles, but sometimes it takes doing the double to know why it's not working. Like you can't always troubleshoot your double with a single jump, even though I do believe in that a lot. I try to reduce the amount of doubles that I do in general if they're not like super, super solid right then, just because injury prevention, you know, I don't want to fall and hit my head on concrete, so, and I'm not wearing a helmet for every single jump I do. I'm so sorry. A lot of people will be like, you need to wear crash pads, you need to wear blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I probably should. I'm not gonna do that every single time I skate. Especially like most of my bad falls are on footwork, and people are like, well then you should wear crash pads when you're doing footwork. I'm like, I'm not putting them on to do a rocker. I don't care if that rocker kills me, I'm sorry. Like, it's just how it is. Don't take my advice, wear protection when you're skating, but it does kind of hinder your movement too. Anyways, last one was with the foot turned out. Let's try to turn it in a little bit more. Okay, that one felt very turned in, but it didn't feel like my leg came around at all. It kind of just felt like it went up. It like came in and then I pivoted and then the jump just went up. That's kind of what I've been struggling with recently, is that I'm not feeling this foot break through. And really what I think is happening is that you're supposed to have your hips behind you, or in front of you, I guess, on the takeoff. But I still need to be able to climb that pole. It's kind of like I'm putting the pole out in front of me and I'm still just running into it, and I'm not running and going up with the pole, if that makes sense. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. I think that hip snap is a big part of that, because I'm kind of losing tension through my like pole, if you will. Let's try to focus on the left hip. A little weird entrance. Okay, well that was a messed up 3 turn if I'm gonna be real, so I don't really know if that one was the best for me to judge on. I'm gonna do this as a drill. Since I'm working on that hip snap, it's really hard to feel because the Salchow takeoff just happens so fast. It's like before I can even process what I'm supposed to do or how it feels, I'm already back on the ground. So I'm gonna try to do a little drill with the kind of 2-foot pump thing. And I really wanna try to feel like I'm snapping up through my hip. That's a drill, actually. I should probably do some of those. They're called 2-foot loops, or I heard them called a Russian twist, I think. But it's basically that push with the 2 edges, so inside edge, outside edge, and then you jump up. So you should really try to use those 2 edges like at the same time and snap through your hips. So that's kind of a good drill for toe loop and Salchow because they both have very similar technique. So why don't I try some of those? It's kind of hard to do anything on a circle in here where there's these spots I don't want to jump over. Okay, well, landed way too far backwards on that one. I think I used my shoulders too much. That's usually kind of what causes that. Are my wheels still on? I'm gonna do this a million times. I'm so sorry. This one is like loose, but I know that it's actually tightened down. Okay. Also, you can land them on 1 foot, or you can try to do it like a Euler, or a half loop. Let's try that. So I'm pushing. Oh no, I have a weird, I can't do it like a Euler. God, I can't do it like an Euler for some reason. It's just like not working. Huh, that's so weird. Let's try again. I'm trying to land more like, I could do an actual Euler and land it like this. A little bit more smooth. I want to land kind of on both my feet at the same time, or like more like I'm stepping down. But I don't want it to be so delayed, like I land here and then push and step down. I want it to just kind of happen. Keep it closer and happen faster. Let's just try another Euler like that. That was a little better. I thought I just saw like an animal. That scared the crap out of me. What was that? Anyways, it's a little weird being in an empty parking garage at night, especially when I'm like speaking out loud and skating around like an idiot. Anyways, let's try another 2-footed loop, see if I can get that down. Okay, this is feeling right. I don't know how good those looked, but the landing felt better and like the kind of takeoff into it, but I'm afraid that I'm pulling my shoulders back a little bit too much to have that kind of Euler feeling. So I don't know how well that will help for my Salchow. I don't know, let's see. Let's try one of those. We'll try like the Euler landing, the left foot landing, and then do it into a right foot landing to kind of like simulate the Salchow landing. How many times can I say landing in one sentence? And then we'll just do a real Salchow and just try to feel it. Okay. 2-foot Euler, 2-foot loop. Okay, I mean, not mad at that, honestly, because I kind of saved the landing. Let's do Salchow. It's weird, it feels really good, but it's still just, I'm missing that oomph, that like lift up into the air. It just doesn't feel like I can make it much bigger than that right now. It's so weird because the harder I swing my free leg to try to get that height, that's just not where the height comes from. The harder I swing that free leg up, the worse it gets, and the smaller it gets. It usually like gets 0 height when I really try. Let's try to use my free leg a little more. Let's see. It's all about experimenting. I mean, that felt good. What I'm really not feeling is like, you know, for a waltz jump, you kind of have this bend and like, I call it, what do I call it? Like the preparation, the wind up, that's what I say. The wind up for the jump It's because you're kind of building tension and then you're releasing that tension to create a really strong swing through. And I'm not feeling that momentum with my leg. Like I feel the pivot with my left leg and then somehow I just have to like kick my leg up, but I'm not feeling like this leg coming around is then kind of helping me propel forward into the jump. That's really the problem for me right now. So I don't know if the answer to that is to make it more circular or if it's to make it more toe loopy where it goes up like that. Yeah, so I still don't know. Let's try both. I'm really gonna try to focus on building some momentum with that swing through. Okay, I felt nothing on that one. Let's try the swingier, circular kind of technique. Okay, my phone is kind of like running out of storage, so I think I'm gonna just let's just go for a double sal. I don't know, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. I don't think I'll be able to pull in for it, honestly, but it'd be really great if I could. I just want to try at least one to see what it looks like compared to my other attempts. I don't think I'm in frame that well. Let's fix this. I don't feel like my salchow has gotten that much better since the beginning, but it definitely feels better than the last time I skated, which was at the rink, so I don't know, I guess that's a win, but I still really want it to be good at the rink. Let's do one warm-up sal. Ooh, that felt good. It didn't feel perfect. I didn't feel like I could get distance with it, but I felt like I got a lot of height. Just felt smooth. That's what I want, is to just feel like it's one movement. Okay, let's just try it. Let's do a salchow loop. Oh gosh. I keep bailing out on doing the double like right before I go for it. I keep being like, actually, let's do something else. That one wasn't good, so now I want to do a good sal loop before I go for the double. Wasn't perfect, but I don't know, now the salchow doesn't feel good. Now it feels weird. I think I overthought it a little bit. Let's just try it again without thinking too much. Got like no speed out of the salchow, so the loop was pretty wimpy. Okay, I'm like actually running out of storage for real now, so this is my double salchow. I have to do it. I need to just try one. Let me make sure my wheels are good and tight. Okay. My wheels are a little uneven, I will say, so I don't know how much that throws me off. Let's just try. See? It just doesn't go up at all. Just like immediately spins into the air. I want to watch that. Okay. See, the thing is, it doesn't look like, there's nothing I can see in the jump that is like a deal breaker per se. It's really something I'm feeling that is not right, but it looks like it should be okay. It looks like I should be able to jump higher, but whenever I try to jump higher, it just doesn't happen. So let's try. I really think it's the hip snap. I said that was going to be my last one, but I'm going to continue trying double sals until I run out of storage on this. So okay. I mean, I landed a double sal, kinda. I don't know. I like struggle to kind of say that I landed a double sal just now because that didn't feel right at all. But I did feel like I could commit to it, so I don't know. That's something. I wasn't like, it didn't feel like I was doing a good jump where I could pull over my right side like an axle, but it did feel okay. So I don't know, let's try again. It did kind of hurt when I landed. My foot just like, it just hurts to land sometimes. I'm landing on the wrong part of my foot. I'm landing like towards the inside, and it's like the impact when I come down kind of hurts like the ball of my foot. I feel like these insoles might not be like perfectly aligned with where my arch is, so I'm kind of like pushing into the wrong part of the insole. It hurts a little bit. I would like to avoid that. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna try the back 3 mohawk because that's what I used to like more. Huh. I don't know. Let's just try a faster one. Try to do a really big salchow with that entry. Ah! Ow! Oh my gosh, that hurt really bad. It's not even like an injury pain. It's just like, oh, ow. It's just like I landed on a pebble or something. Like it felt like there was like a pin sticking into my foot or something like that. Gosh, that did not feel good. I'm gonna give it one more attempt because it doesn't feel like an injury pain. Like I'm not gonna snap my foot or break something in my foot. But dang, that just did not feel good. Maybe that's the encouragement I need to not land on the inside of my foot, try to land on an outside edge. That's a single sow though. That should not really hurt. Just felt weird. I think I was landing way too far up on my toe, which I'd like to rock down from my toe a little bit, but if I land on my toe stop, it's just kind of rough. It doesn't feel good. Okay. It feels a little weird. It feels kind of delayed. That's what I don't want to happen. I want it to just pick up into the air and not like push and then I jump. So let's see if I can do that better. I don't know. It's not what I want. I think I'm also kind of out of frame if I'm going to be real. Okay. Thank you for coming to my salchow practice with me. I don't really know how much progress I made if I'm going to be 100% real. We'll see later. I'll make a little like follow-up with this. But yeah, I plan to do more of these. Hopefully I can kind of get into some technical content a little bit. Salchow is still a jump I'm kind of like figuring out a little bit. I understand how it works, but there's a lot of nuances to jumping and things are very personal, so I'm still trying to kind of figure out like what works for me, what mental things work for me and technical things work for me. So yeah, thank you for coming along. Hopefully at some point in this series I will land this damn double salchow. You seriously don't understand how much grief this jump has given me. I was like not gonna skate today because it's cold and dark and I've been at work all day. And I was getting so antsy thinking about like, oh, I can do it. I just know I can do it. And then I get out here and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. So yeah, I'm gonna keep doing double sows, or trying at least until something happens. I die or I land it.
All right, I'm gonna make a little follow-up now because I didn't really even record like much of an outro for that video. So this is on the left the first salchow I did, and on the right is probably the best one that I did. These are my single sows, obviously. And they look pretty similar. I mean, if you go through frame by frame, let's see if I can move this over a little bit. Nope. If you go through frame by frame, they actually look pretty similar. I mean, there's not really any one frame in this that looks completely different. I've tried to link them up here at the moment that I left the ground. It's not perfectly linked together. I leave a little bit sooner on the right one. But there's not like a huge difference. You can see most of the positions look about the same. I'm a little bit tighter on this jump on the right. My jump on the left was a little bit looser, and I got a little bit more air time. The one on the right definitely was bigger. The biggest thing that I noticed that I think improved my jump on the right is that I get my toe stop into the ground about here, or at least I start to pivot through, whereas on the jump on the left, it has a little bit wider of a pivot around. You can kind of see that it pivots just a little bit more on a curve, whereas the jump on the right kind of comes back, I catch my toe stop and I pivot in place rather than kind of going around a larger curve. And that really helps me get some momentum into it, and it helps you kind of control that swing through. So I swung through with a lot more force on the jump on the right. Also, the thing I noticed, it's very, very minor, and it's pretty hard to tell, but just from this frame alone, I do feel like I got a better snap up through my hip. So on the right, I kind of have a slightly bent leg right here. And on the jump on the right, I have more of a straight kind of axis running through my leg. and it looks like my hips are a little bit more underneath me, just barely, just barely. But it does look like my hips got a little bit more of a snap right in this frame on the jump on the right. That I'm not just pushing up through my toe, I'm kind of snapping through my hip just a little bit better. Also, I'm slightly more backwards, I think, on this jump on the right. I really have this slight forward lean still on this axis. It's not exactly forward, but you can imagine if I were to straighten my body, like squeeze as hard as I could through that axis, it would be a little bit forward. And on this jump back here, the axis that I have is a little bit more upright. So it's not a huge difference. Again, if I actually try to line this up, it's really not that different, but it is just slightly more tilted backwards. So that is something that I tried to work on, and so I'm glad that I saw at least a tiny bit of progress there. But yeah, overall, I think it really is mostly a feeling kind of thing that I'm still just having to get the rhythm back. The biggest difference that I saw is that the rhythm on the jump on the right looks a lot smoother. There's not a kind of pause. Whoops. There's no pause between the pivot and then the jump. Whereas the one on the left looks a little bit more delayed. And if I kind of put them in slow-mo, it's a little harder to tell in slow-mo. Also, this jump on the left is out of frame. I'm sorry. I wish I could make it more in frame. But yeah, overall, I think that the biggest difference is that slight backward lean that I have in this frame, plus the pivot, like the edge going into it was a little bit more tight, and I got my toe stop into the ground quicker, and then got a little bit more of a vault up through my hips. And the one on the right, I can't even really describe, it just looks a lot stronger. My H position on this jump just looks a lot tighter and kind of kept more close together, and that's exactly what I want for the double, because you cannot really do a double with a bad takeoff and have this kind of loose H position. So the closer I can get my feet together on it at any point in the jump, the better. So yeah, no, not like a huge improvement that I made on this, but definitely a little bit better. I can see, like, it's easier to tell in full speed that the one on the right definitely got more height, and I definitely can tell that my swing through guided the height a little bit more. Versus on the left, I'm really just kind of skipping over the jump, and that's about where it maxes out. So yeah, I think all things considered, I'm not mad about that. I am happy I saw a little bit of progress at least. And yeah, I didn't really film a great outro because I started running out of storage, and then I just went back to doing double sows. So thank you for coming along with me to my practice. Hopefully you guys kind of like this content of seeing me progress in real time, and over the course of multiple episodes, I'll start to be able to compare, you know, this is episode 1 of my double sow, and this is episode 10 of my double sow. Hopefully it doesn't take 10 episodes until I can land a clean double sow cow again, but we will find out, and yeah, thank you for joining me. Bye!